morning I'd like to help you think a little bit, at least get you started thinking about God. I want to start with a question. How do you think about God? Your Father in the heavens. What does your mind's eye see when you think about God? Is he happy? Is he sad? Is he smart or dumb? Is he excited or lethargic? Maybe he's busy, or is he lazy? Is he old or young? You know, he's called in Scripture the Ancient of Days. That would, in our thinking, that would mean he's old. He's at least as old as the world is. So how do you see him? When you read that he is called the Ancient of Days, does that color your picture or your thinking of God? I'm going to read a couple of sentences from Dr. Dallas Willard to get us started this morning. Central to the understanding and proclamation of the Christian gospel today, as in Jesus' day, is a revisioning of what God's own life is like and how the physical cosmos, the creation, fits into it. It is a great and important task to come to terms with what we really think when we think of God. Most hindrances to the faith of Christ actually lie in this part of our minds and souls. If Jesus cannot help us with understanding God's life, he cannot help us at all to that salvation life that is by faith. But surely he can, and he does, help us to understand. To begin with, we should think and realize that our Father in the heavens has a very interesting life. One that is brimful of joy. Everywhere he turns, he meets another delightful part of his creation. His people are perhaps, I don't think there's any doubt, his people are the favorite part of his creation. He has mountains, plains, he has deserts and swamps. He has the dogwood hills in Tennessee, and he has jungles in Amazon, South America. He has snow-covered mountaintops. He has open seas, all these different things. We talked recently about the singing stars and the singing whales. Remember? And I want to talk to you or tell you today about some of the smallest gardens that I know of. He made them, but you can hold one in your hand at times. And the ones I saw are located in southern Oregon on the Spring Creek that flows into the Williamson River. Probably doesn't mean anything to you, but if you want to locate it, you find the Williamson River, and it's a tributary. The water was as clear as air. You could see, sitting in the canoe, you could see the bottom. You could take the paddle and stick it in, and it's deeper than the canoe paddle at arm's length. I don't know how deep, but it was a never-touched bottom. That country is all volcanic formation, so the sand coming out of the spring, the mouth of the spring, was black and it just boiling, and brought a squeal out of my midshipman over here, my lead ship partner there. When she went over, she was in the front seat of the canoe, and it looked like something was alive in the water, just boiling, this black sand coming out of the spring. She's the one that first saw the little gardens. She noticed, and I'd seen that there was some kind of green stuff on the saplings that would fall because of the marshy ground. The saplings would get up so tall and they'd just fall, and they'd fall across the creek like this. So if you're in a canoe, you got to go over and around the end of the tree and around the end of that tree. We were trying to find the headwaters of this creek, and we finally got to a point where it was blocked and we couldn't get any further up. We had to turn around and come out, but it was there were these, the mouths of the spring, several of them. I don't know how many, we couldn't even count them. But I'm getting off track here. Some of these moss gardens had little blossoms, little flowers, and they were about the size or maybe smaller than the kitchen match head. Little tiny things. Dozens of different varieties of mosses, all in one place. Rita wanted to take one home, and we didn't have any way to keep fresh water for us to get all the way back. It was probably 40 miles from home. But looking at the little gardens and the tiny stems and leaves that they had, I came to realize that while our Father lives in a house large enough to contain myriads of galaxies, trillions of miles across, literally, he can get small enough to smell the blossom and the moss. And there were lots of them. All the trees, saplings had it. It was occasionally you'd see a clump of dirt or a rock in the creek, and it would have moss growing on it. They were God can get small enough to smell the flowers when they're that small. Maybe even sit in their shade. I'm very sure if I can imagine it, he's already done it. He's phenomenal. I'd like for y'all to share with me sometime, if you think of it, the ways that you see God enjoying his creation. How does it, I mean, if you got your eyes open and you see his creation, how do you see him enjoying? Because he actually takes pleasure in all these things that he made. You remember what he said on the sixth day when he's standing back and he's looking at everything he's done. What did he say about the creation? It's very good. Very good. He still is. Not only is his creation immensely beautiful, it seems that Jesus' opinion of our universe is that it's a quiet and safe place for us to live. Listen to these words from Matthew chapter 6, and this is Willard's translation of Jesus' words. My advice would be not to worry about what's going to happen to you, about what you'll have to eat or drink, or about what clothes to wear. Your life doesn't consist in eating, and there's much more to your body than clothes. Take a lesson from the birds of heaven. They don't sow or reap or pour away in granaries. And your Father, the one in the heavens around you, sees to it that they have food. Aren't you more important than birds? You can change their physical features. Who can change their physical features? By worrying about them. As for worrying about clothes, well, look at the little flowers in the fields. They just pop right up. They don't slave away getting or making clothes. But Solomon, on his best day, in his best outfit, was not as glorious as one of these. Now, if God so adorns the wild grasses, which are here for a day, and the next day are burned for fuel, won't he do better by you, you many faiths? Don't worry about things, saying, what are we going to eat? What will we have anything to drink there? And what will we wear? People who don't know God at all think about such things. For your Father, the one in the heavens around you, knows you need these things. Instead, make it your top priority to be a part of what God is doing. And have the kind of goodness that he has. Everything else you need will be provided. Tomorrow, don't worry about it. You can do your worrying about tomorrow. And anyway, enough will happen today to keep you in things to worry about until bedtime. This somewhat bold assertion about our basic necessities shows a confidence in our God, that he is right here, nearby, and taking care of our needs. In the Old Testament, the experience of God is his direct presence, his person and his power, right there for those who trust in him. No person, no time, no space, no spiritual being, no event stands between God and those who trust him. Heavens are always right there around us. The first heaven being the very air that we breathe. It is from that very air that God watches and God acts. I thought maybe it'd be good to have a few examples for you to see from Scripture of God acting from the very heaven near to us. Genesis chapter 21, Hagar, Abram's concubine, leaves her son Ishmael under a bush so that she won't have to watch him die of thirst. And God speaks to her from heaven. And he shows her a well of water near to her so she can revive him. Sometimes later, in Genesis 22, Abraham is told to offer his son Isaac as a sacrifice. And God speaks to him from an air close by, saying, as he raises the knife to kill him, God speaks to him out of the thin air, right nearby, saying not to harm the lad. In Genesis 28, verse 17 and 19, Jacob has a dream of a ladder reaching from earth to heaven. Angels are going up and down on it. He wakes up with the Lord standing right beside him and exclaims, I have found the very house of God, the awesome entrance to heaven. God spoke to Moses from heaven while giving the Ten Commandments on Sinai Mountain in Exodus 20. And God thundered from heaven upon Israel's enemies in battles, It's interesting to read 1 Samuel 7, verse 10. The Philistines were so confused by the thunder that they were overcome before Israel. And Israel chased them all the way to Beth-kar, which is several miles from where they were. Every once in a while you hear a loud thunderclap. And it can, at first it's pretty scary. Sometimes it takes you a little bit to get recovered from. That's what happened with them. In Genesis 15, there was fire from heaven is recorded several times. The first time we see it there in Genesis 15, Abraham makes a covenant with God. You remember, and there was a smoking oven and a burning torch. In Exodus 13, as Israel left Egypt, a column of cloud by day and a column of fire by night, you remember? So they could see to travel 24 hours a day when they left. In 1 Kings 18, Elijah on Mount Carmel, he was basically doing battle with the prophets of Baal. He built an altar, he put wood on it, he killed the bull and put it on the altar, and then he prayed to God, and God sent fire. I at least have it envisioned as a lightning strike. I don't know if it was or not, but somehow he lit the fire, and it burned up the wood, it burned up the bull. They had doused it with water 3 different times. It burned up all the water. It burned up all the rocks, everything, even the dust around it. In 2 Kings chapter 1, Elijah is met by captains. It says a captain of 50. Him and his men came to escort Elijah to see the king. Only it didn't work out that way. God sent fire from heaven, it says, and consumed them, all of them. And he did it twice more, or he did it another time, twice. And the third group that was sent was more humble than the first 2 groups. And God told him, if you go with them, you're safe. In 1 Chronicles 21, David took a census, something that God had said not to do. And God sent a plague. In Exodus 30, it tells you about it. David builds an altar at the threshing floor of Ornan, and he offered a sacrifice, and it stopped the plague that God had sent after it had killed 72,000 men. Israel came looking at God, eventually came to look at God as a consuming fire. He's a jealous God. And the general conclusion by the faithful community, the believers, the Jewish believers, recorded in Psalm 34, the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. 2 Chronicles 16:9, the eyes of the Lord roam back and forth across the earth to show himself strong on behalf of those whose heart is loyal to him. Yeah. You see this over and over. In the New Testament, we also see God's presence with his people. The incarnation of Jesus being the most obvious and the most detailed. They called him Emmanuel, which even means God with us. When Paul was speaking to the group of philosophers on Mars Hill, you remember in Acts 17. He said, in God, in Him, we live and move, we have our very being. Or we exist, we would say today. He wasn't using a metaphor or an abstract speech. He was stating what really happens. In John 3, Jesus is talking with Nicodemus and encourages him to take another spiritual step. To be born from above, he said. Nicodemus was somewhat confused. He thought, and many held him to be a teacher in Israel of spiritual things. He was at the top of the ladder for those seeking God among the people, but it seems that he hadn't even tapped into the spiritual side of understanding God's ways. He had a little trouble sorting out Jesus' meaning, and he finally caught on. Sometimes we also find it hard to tap into God's ways and thoughts. We were trained by the events that happen in our lives to think of Him as being far away and not really interested in our personal situation. So if you realize that you're thinking like that, it's time to take a break. You need to look up Acts 17, verse 27 and 8, where, like Paul told the people on Mars Hill, in Him we live and move. We have our very existence in Him. And remind yourself how close nearby and how involved He is. And trust Him. That's the hard part. To trust Him. Those are my thoughts this morning.